Tonight, the battle over the bailout.
We are going to get a package passed.
But it won't be easy. House Republicans are pushing a radically different alternative, and Democrats vow to stay in session
as long as it takes to get it done.
I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, as the battle goes on, another bank collapses under the weight of bad mortgages, the biggest failure ever. And as Senators McCain and Obama get ready to debate, a Jeff Greenfield primer in how to make and score a point.
Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric reporting tonight from the University of Mississippi.
And good evening, everyone, from this historic university in Oxford, Mississippi, where later this evening, John McCain and Barack Obama will debate for the first time. But overshadowing this face-off is the one going on in Washington over the Bush administration's bailout plan for the financial industry. Republicans in the House are now pushing a very different alternative. Still, as negotiations resumed today, leading Democrats were saying progress is being made. So we'll begin tonight in Washington with correspondent Bob Orr. Bob, what's the latest?
Well, Katie, all sides here continue to say would have severe economic aftershocks in America if Congress fails to pass that big bailout bill. But now apparently the whole deal hinges on whether the president can turn back a revolt by members of his own party.
We will rise to the occasion. Republicans and Democrats will come together and pass a substantial rescue plan.
While the president today tried to express renewed optimism, House Republicans flashed their anger over the rush to spend $700 billion in taxpayer money to clean up the mortgage market mess.
We will not agree to a bill that sells taxpayers out to bail out Wall Street.
House conservatives want to use tax cuts and private insurance, not tax dollars, to pay for any bailout. But they complain negotiators for House Democrats, the Senate, and the administration never even considered those alternatives before announcing their so-called tentative agreement.
Clearly, the Democrats have a majority in both houses of the Congress. If they want to do this by themselves, they can do this by themselves any minute they want to.
But Speaker Nancy Pelosi has repeatedly warned that Democrats will not carry the Republican administration's bailout by themselves and claims without a significant number of conservative votes, any deal is doomed.
I want to thank
After yesterday's White House summit led to more finger-pointing than progress, Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson last night headed to Capitol Hill to try to pick up the pieces and reassure Wall Street that the deal could and would be put back together. The president spent today working the phones looking for votes. Republican presidential candidate John McCain walked the halls of Congress doing the same. Then both candidates for president headed for tonight's debate, claiming that some progress is being made. But Senate leaders who have already endorsed the original agreement stress that a final package is needed soon.
Everyone. We think it is extremely important not only to get the substance of the package right, but also to do it quickly.
We're going to get this done and stay in session as long as it takes to get it done.
Now, at least all sides are talking together. House Republicans who did not take part in the original negotiations have finally taken a seat at the bargaining table.
We are examining their proposals, but for the first time, they are examining our proposals.
It is significant that all sides finally are talking together, but we don't know at this hour if any of the House Republican ideas will actually be part of any final bill. What is clear is that a lot of work remains if Congress is to pass the bailout before the nervous markets reopen on Monday morning. Katie?
Bob Orr in Washington. Bob, thank you. Republican Congressman John Boehner of Ohio is the House Minority Leader. Congressman, what do House Republicans need to see in this bailout package in order to support it?
I think what we're expecting in these negotiations is looking for ways to really protect taxpayers and to make sure that Wall Street pays its fair share of this problem. I just don't think it's fair to take $700 billion of taxpayer funds, put them on the line, without Wall Street also stepping up to help solve this problem.
Does your proposal that companies buy insurance for these mortgage-backed securities, does that have to be included in the deal?
I think it's an option that many people believe will work, that will minimize the amount of taxpayer risk and actually requires Wall Street to put the money up to ensure these products. It's a viable option that ought to be considered, and we're continuing to push that it be considered.
This crisis has been going on for more than a week. Why did it take until yesterday for House Republicans to finalize this alternative?
Katie, I've talked about alternatives with the President of the United States, the Secretary of the Treasury, and Speaker Pelosi now for the last 4 days. They've been well aware of our concerns, well aware of some ideas that we've put on the table, and so it's not like this was anything new.
There's a lot of controversy. Did Senator McCain's presence help or hurt the negotiations?
What it did was bring more attention to the problem that we have, to more Americans, and to the likely outcome and what this plan is going to look like. And so at the end of the day, I thought it was constructive, and I hope that the candidates will continue to play an active role that I do think can help the process. They're expecting Republican House members to step up and support this, and if they want our votes, they're going to have to listen to our concerns about protecting taxpayers in America.
Do you think Congress will have to stay put and not go home before something is actually done on this?
I think we should stay here until the job's done.
All right. House Minority Leader John Boehner. Congressman, thanks so much.
Katie, thank you.
Democratic Senator Chris Dodd of Connecticut is chairman of the Banking Committee. Senator Dodd, how much support do Democrats need from House Republicans to feel comfortable voting for this package?
Well, I don't know any number. This ought not to be. Look, this is if you're looking to make your constituents happy with this one, forget about it. There are going to be no bans and no parades for you on this one. They're furious over we've come to this, an avoidable, preventable situation that could have been dealt with months ago had the administration stepped up and done their jobs.
Was the presence of the two presidential candidates helpful in any way, Senator?
I will tell you candidly, Katie, I've heard from Barack Obama almost on a daily basis over the last 7 or 8 days. I know as well that he's spoken to Republican members of the Banking Committee. I haven't heard word one from John McCain. Now, John and I have been friends and served here together, but the idea that John McCain was coming to town to solve this problem was pure political theater. It was a rescue plan for John McCain, not a rescue plan for the economy.
And finally, Senator Dodd, what are the consequences of getting nothing passed? And can you give us any notion of a timeline when you all will complete this work?
Well, I can only tell you what we're being told by others, that if we don't step up, these problems we're seeing in our economy could grow far worse. And I'm prepared to work all weekend, if necessary, to try and get a thoughtful plan done. I'm not going to give this president a blank check for $700 billion without some conditionality on it. I just won't do that, and I don't think my colleagues will either. So I'd like to get it done quickly, but I'll be darned if I'm going to do this in a way that I think is irresponsible.
Well, Senator Chris Dodd, I know you've been very busy. Get back to work. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Kitty.
Now, while the debate was going on about how to rescue financial institutions, another one collapsed. Seattle-based Washington Mutual. With $307 billion in assets, it's by far the largest bank to fail in U.S. history. WAMU has more than 2,200 branches in 15 states, and nervous depositors withdrew nearly $17 billion over the past 10 days before the FDIC finally took control of the bank. Anthony Mason has the story and the impact.
It is a very sad day. It's a very sad day.
Brought down by bad mortgage loans.
I think our economy is really in trouble.
The nation's largest savings and loan was seized by the government last night, then sold to J.P. Morgan Chase for the fire sale price of less than $2 billion. WAMU's shareholders will be wiped out, but the FDIC assured all of Washington Mutual's depositors that they are fully protected. Joy Abarca wasn't withdrawing her money.
It doesn't make sense for me to move to another bank right now when it could happen to the next bank.
As Congress argues over a bailout, the crisis in the credit markets is deepening.
The situation is not getting any better right now.
It is not.
Ira Jersey is with Credit Suisse, one of the world's largest banks.
Banks are unwilling to lend even to each other except when they take in the best collateral. This certainly is as close to a systemic failure as we could come.
The money that banks lend to each other is the oil that keeps the economy moving. But suddenly, the cost of that oil is skyrocketing.
The interest rate banks charge each other has spiked a full point in the past 2 weeks, and more than half of all adjustable rate mortgages are tied to that rate. Now look at this indicator that banks use to chart risk. It soared to its highest level
in more than 20 years.
So the system's just frozen, and that has ramifications for everyone. Anyone who's trying to get an auto loan, anyone who's trying to get a credit card.
Timur Kolak's business has felt the effects.
I was shocked.
Kolak took out a $290,000 line of credit when he bought his Florida sign company. Then his bank abruptly told him it had
decreased the credit line by $60,000. Your balance is $347.04.
So Couric is demanding more cash up front from his customers.
We're trying not to participate in the recession.
But signs are, without a bailout, we could be headed for something even worse. Anthony Mason, CBS News, New York.
Meanwhile, on Wall Street, prospects that Congress will approve a rescue package sent financial stocks higher, and that helped give the Dow a boost. It closed with a gain of 121 points. Now, for a time, it looked as if the debate here in Mississippi tonight might not even happen. Senator McCain said he wouldn't come unless there was a bailout deal. Well, there's no deal, but McCain is here. He changed his mind, and he'll be side by side with Senator Obama tonight. Dean Reynolds now on the pre-debate drama.
John McCain had no response today to this question.
Are you ready for the debate, sir?
It's one of many begging for answers after the twists and turns of the last few days. The fact that McCain went to the debate at all was itself something of a surprise. On Wednesday, he'd said he was suspending his campaign and very likely wouldn't show up.
All we must do to achieve this is temporarily set politics aside, and I am committed to doing so.
But from the moment he set foot in Washington, McCain was engulfed in politics, and then abundant second-guessing of his actions, even by Republicans, whose infighting unraveled a near-completed deal and left McCain with little to show for his efforts. Today, he bowed to widespread insistence that the debate go ahead, abruptly leaving Washington without much of an explanation for his about-face. While the McCain campaign said this was no time to play the blame game, they pointed a finger at Barack Obama and the Democrats, who they said stood together in opposition to an agreement. Today, Obama sounded happy to be heading to Mississippi and away from the political jockeying in Washington.
I'm not sure that it was as productive as it could have been, I think at this point it's important to just move forward.
Moving forward means tonight's debate, and there is some nervousness in Obama's camp because the unexpected trip to Washington disrupted preparations for an encounter on what is said to be his opponent's strong suit, foreign policy. Still, the history of the moment is undeniable. Obama debating for the presidency at a university where once his skin color would have barred his admission.
And once this debate is completed, Senator Obama and McCain will probably return to Washington at some point to work on that economic package, which they both surely hope has been signed, sealed, and delivered before their next debate in 11 days. Katie?
Dean Reynolds. Dean, thank you. Bob Schieffer is our chief Washington correspondent and anchor of Face the Nation. Bob, John McCain made a big move this week, suspending his campaign, heading to Washington. What will the fallout be in your view? Will he be seen as a leader or as a grandstander?
Well, I'll tell you, Katie, I think he got into this for the right reasons. Hank Paulson called the McCain campaign, said this bailout plan was going down the tubes. He asked McCain to come back to give the Republicans some cover, to show some leadership. He did that. But the problem, Katie, is John McCain has been the one who's arguing, I can bring the people together. I'm the maverick who can take on my own party. He came back to Washington, and so far it hasn't worked. He put it all up on the line. If they eventually get a deal, I suppose he'll get some of the credit. But so far, he's not looking too good on this.
All right. Meanwhile, you have a big guest this Sunday on Face the Nation.
We surely do. Barack Obama is going to be our exclusive guest. We had John McCain 3 weeks ago. This time we'll have Barack Obama, see what he has to say about what happens here tonight.
And what's happened all week in Washington, I'm sure. Bob Schieffer. Bob, thanks so much. Looking forward to that. And coming up next on the CBS Evening News, retirement was great until he lost half his savings. The financial crisis has many seniors working on Plan B. Back now from Ole Miss, where Senators McCain and Obama will debate tonight. For a lot of Americans, the turmoil in the financial markets can seem far removed from their daily lives. That is, until they take a close look at their retirement fund. And as Mark Strassman reports, for some, the golden years are getting tarnished.
Watch the ball. Watch the ball. Here it is.
Walter Lawrence was living retirement on Easy Street until Wall Street scrambled his nest egg.
I had a lot of money. Today, I don't have a lot of money.
Half his savings gone without spending a dime. It's a financial distress call for millions of retirees. America's economy burning through their assets. Lawrence can spot an emergency. He's a retired Atlanta firefighter, and after 16 years, he may have to go back to work doing something.
I doubt you would find too many people looking to hire a 67-year-old. So then what do you do?
Paul Nelson would never have retired at all. He saved, planned, invested for a long walk down the fairway, but his investments are down 25%.
They always say you need X amount of dollars to retire. Well, I don't think anybody could say right now what you would really need to retire. There's no way.
Even before this week's financial upheaval, at 18%, few American workers were very confident they'd have enough money for retirement. And most retirees have more financial worries now than the day they stopped working. More Americans over 55 are still working than at any time since 1970. And with the economy now in turmoil, labor experts predict even more anxious older workers will be forced to put off retirement.
I would honestly say I would wait another 2 or 3 years, but in 2 or 3 years I might have to say it was 5 or 7 because like the uncertainty, we don't know what it's going to take.
Which has this retired firefighter smelling smoke in his future.
So you could see outliving your assets?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And could you ever have imagined that?
No. No.
Just a couple years ago?
No.
They're like many retirees, with no idea where to find a new roadmap back to Easy Street.
All right.
Mark Strassman, CBS News, Atlanta.
Still ahead, tips for the candidates, what not to say at a debate.
Who am I? Why am I here?
The highest highs and the lowest lows of debates gone by. In Alaska today, the investigation into what's become known as Troopergate hit another snag. 7 of Sarah Palin's top aides refused to appear at a legislative hearing. At issue in the case is whether Governor Palin abused her authority when she fired the state public safety commissioner after he refused to fire a state trooper who was involved in a nasty divorce with her sister. Overseas, a history-making flight by a daredevil who's called Rocket Man, wearing a one-of-a-kind composite ring. Yves Rossi jumped from a plane 8,000 feet over the English Channel. His 4 jet engines carried him from France to England 21 miles in about 13 minutes. Coming up next, Professor Greenfield with a course in Presidential Debating 101. 48 years ago tonight, viewers tuned to CBS were informed they would not be seeing the Andy Griffith Show.
Not be seen tonight.
Good evening. The television and radio stations of the United States and their affiliated stations are proud to candidate Senator John F. Kennedy, Vice President.
Instead, they'd be witnessing history, the first ever debate between 2 nominees for president. John Kennedy and Richard Nixon met in the studios of CBS station WBBM in Chicago. Now, since then, there have been 31 presidential and vice presidential debates. Jeff Greenfield looks back at the good, the bad, and the ugly.
If you're under attack, it's a good idea to have a quick comeback.
There you go again.
If voters are wondering if you're too old for the job, take another cue from the Gipper.
I am not going to exploit, for political purposes, my opponent's youth and inexperience.
If you're being accused of inexperience, take a hint from Ross Perot.
I don't have any experience in running up a $4 trillion debt.
I have as much experience in the Congress as Jack Kennedy did.
And know your opponent's favorite arguments. Lloyd Benson knew that Dan Quayle sometimes compared his experience to John Kennedy's.
Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Number 1.
Now, here's what not to do. Do not declare a captive nation free when it isn't.
I don't believe that the Poles consider themselves dominated by the Soviet Union.
Don't look at your watch. It suggests you can't wait to leave. And don't stalk your opponent.
But can you get things done? And I believe I can.
It'll look weird.
still no explanation from the technical people as to what the problem is.
Finally, if the audio goes out, as it did back in 1976, don't stand rooted in silence at your podium for 27 minutes. If either Ford or Carter had acted like a human being, with a laugh, chatting with the other guy, they might have won hands down.
And speaking of ugly, could this please be the year that no one declares the candidates have to act presidential? What are they supposed to do? Wear a stovepipe hat and grow a beard? Enough already, Katie.
All right, Jeff Greenfield, thanks. And that is the CBS Evening News. I'll be back with the McCain-Obama debate beginning at 9 Eastern, 8 here in the Central Time Zone. Our coverage will include instant feedback and polling. We'll be able to tell you if the candidates swayed uncommitted voters one way or the other. I'm Katie Couric in Oxford, Mississippi. I'll see you later tonight.